I think we can go with the one more question.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. There is a question there. Yeah, you want to ask a question?
Thank you. Just one short
question. Okay, microphone please, and then if we have time for Ian this time, if not, yeah, thanks.
Sue, I really... Sorry.
I can hear you.
Now? Yeah. Sue, thank you for your presentation. I really admire the efforts on diversifying the staff in BBC, but I was wondering what is the method you define your targets? I saw that you have put some benchmarks. You must achieve these goals maybe in the next year or maybe in the next 3 or 5 years. But I was wondering whether you define your targets on some evidence, they are based on something else. Could you explain a little bit more about the way you define benchmarks?
We have, we do a national census every 10 years in the UK. The last one was 2001, and the ethnic minority population figure from that census was 8%. The next one is next year. And so when we were setting our, these are the second lot of targets. Our first set was 10% based on a figure, the national average of 8. And we thought we should aspire to go higher than that, not least because the majority of the BBC's workforce was based in London, and it still is at the moment. But we then revised those upwards to 12.5%, and the next census is likely to show a further increase, and we will then revisit those targets and look at raising them higher. The reason why the disabled target is so much lower, given the percentage of the population, is because we're starting from a much lower base due to the way that disabled people, by and large, had been educated in the past, in separate schools and all the rest of it. So we don't have as large a pool of qualified disabled people to fish in at the moment, but those will be revised upwards as well. Hey, we've managed to do it.
Northwest. You're listening to 5 Live Drive. Next on CBBC, it's Blue Peter. The web address is bbc.co.uk/breakfast.
Northwest Vision and Media Apprenticeship.
I got involved in a scheme called Supporter to Reporter, which is supported by the BBC.
I'm doing 2 weeks work experience at BBC Look North in Newcastle.
BBC Manchester Mentor Scheme.
It's the BBC in the Northwest.
Next on CBBC is Blue Peter.
I'm Tasha Crawford reporting for BBC News. My interest in the media started about 3 years ago when Jesse James, my friend, was shot in the park over there.
Shall we hear one question from the darkness?
Yes, she has one.
There is Ian here and there is a gentleman over there.
Somebody's got a microphone here.
I think I'm moderating this panel.
Sorry.
My name is Evgenia. My name is Evgenia, I'm from Estonia, and actually I would like to follow with the question about numbers. When you're talking about how much women, disabled people and so on you want to have in the BBC, I would like to ask if it's more like a natural process or artificial process. I mean, do you have the goal and you try to achieve it through the quotes or something of this kind, or do you just, or is the process that develops by itself? Thank you.
They're not quotas, they're targets. So they're aspirational rather than we have to meet them. And basically, within the UK, there is a large pool of people with the necessary skills and experience to work in the BBC from minority backgrounds. Also, there are lots of women with the necessary skills and experience. So the targets are an incentive for people to ensure that it's on people's minds when they're hiring people and looking at the general workforce, but they are not obligatory, because that would be illegal. But so it's natural evolution, but it's also incentivizing people.
We have a question there, then a question here, then a question from the... Gentlemen, I'm sorry, we just... Yeah, and then Ian, and then Deutsche Welle, yeah.
Okay, thank you. My name is Tomáš Havlín, I'm from Czech Republic. Generally, I have two questions. I've heard that there may be some chance or a danger that the number of BBC channels could be reduced, and I would like to know how it would affect your ability to cover the social diversity in a diverse way, and also if there's anything to expect, like at this point, from the new government or from the economical crisis recovery. Thanks.
Well, those two things are actually fairly closely linked, because before the Conservatives won the election, or the Liberal Dems and the Conservatives together to form the government, the Conservatives had already made it clear that they were going to be looking at, at the BBC, possibly top slicing the licence fee, which is taking away some of our guaranteed income, and giving it to commercial broadcasters in order for them to fulfil their public service broadcasting remit. So the strategic review, which you referred to, I believe, the BBC's own strategic review, was looking at the services that we currently have, and I think it was an attempt to try and address these issues before the Conservatives came into power and did it to us. At the moment, there are two digital radio networks that are under threat of closure. One being the Asian network, which is targeted specifically at Asian audiences across the UK. But the review they're in consultation process at the moment, and it's not definite what services will go. One of the other areas that's being looked at being reduced is 25% of the BBC's website. I do think that if these services go, there will be impact in terms of the cultural diversity of the staff in particular, because obviously the Asian network has a large number of staff of Asian origin, and unless we can find places to redeploy them, then we will lose some of the ethnic minority staff that we currently have. But nothing is certain yet. Also, if we lose some of the licence fee, it will mean scaling back on some of the stuff that we do, but actually what the Conservatives have in their sights specifically are the salaries of the senior BBC management. The Director General of the BBC is currently paid 4 times more than the Prime Minister, which obviously there's an issue there. Historically, the BBC salaries, because I worked in commercial television before I joined the BBC, historically it was always accepted that BBC salaries were lower because it was a privilege to work there. But that relationship has got slightly out of kilter, and obviously makes us a sitting target for the new government in terms of our senior executive salaries. I hope that answers your question.